Assassin's Creed is a series I love, but it has, as of late, lost its identity. But this game, AC Odyssey, is a weird one for me. On one hand, I hate it so much I wish it was never created, and on the other hand, I cannot deny that every time I play this game, I enjoy it so much. I've just recently played through it a second time. You can catch my full playthrough in the link in the description, this time playing the DLC as well, which I had not done the first time around. And I gotta say, I enjoyed it just as much, if not more, the second time. And I honestly don't know why, when this game stands for everything I hate about where AC is currently going. So in this video, I'm going to delve into why I both love and hate Assassin's Creed Odyssey. For the purposes of this video, I played as Kassandra both times, as she is canon and honestly the much better acted character, so I will be referring to Kassandra as the main protagonist of this game. Also, a quick spoiler warning, I will be discussing main story plot points from both the main game and the DLC. Right, let's get into it. The world of Assassin's Creed Odyssey is set in 431 to 422 BC during the Peloponnesian Wars of ancient Greece, and it is absolutely beautiful. This is something I cannot bash Ubisoft for. They have nailed the beauty and wonder of open worlds. They may sometimes fail at giving you a reason to want to explore them other than the enticing worlds themselves, but I cannot deny that the worlds are exquisite. The islands of Greece are a sensational location to set a game in. Any island you can see in the distance can be sailed to, any mountain scaled, or any distant city reached to discover the stories and secrets of any of the regions. Ancient Greece is enormous, miles of ocean and islands. One thing I must say is that there isn't too much to distinguish the islands from each other except with a few large cities that don't look too alike. The cities themselves are wonderfully recreated versions of the amazing buildings from the time period. It is always a treat to scale one of the many large temples in a city and sink a viewpoint to get a panoramic view of the cities of ancient Greece. The world is vibrant thanks to the setting of a Mediterranean climate, creating beautiful blue oceans, lush forests, and flowering bright cities. The world's size does have some downsides. At the beginning of the game, I was excited to travel from one point to another, discovering new parts of the map, but not too long into the game, the long distances you have to travel become a chore. Traveling from island to island should be an epic journey. Instead, I set a point on my map and sail in a straight line, controller on my desk as I let it take me to where I want to go. So basically, it just becomes an inconvenience to travel to a new island. Not something exciting or something I was ever looking forward to. Traveling over land is not much different. Sometimes you have to take control, but others you can just ask your horse, politely of course. Oh, that rhymes. I didn't even realize that until just reading that up. Anyway, yeah, you're gonna ask your horse to automatically take you to your marked location, and again, my controller gets put down on the desk. If you do want to seek out and explore this world, there are plenty of things to do though. Caves, tombs, side quests galore, all just waiting to be found. Another thing that I kind of love and hate is after a certain point, Kassandra just stops taking fall damage. So exploring this world gets easier, but it also becomes much less exciting as a result of it. You can literally jump off anything and survive. There are no longer consequences to falling or jumping. To move anywhere, you just run in a straight line up or down any obstacle in your path, which makes parkour very unengaging and ultimately boring, therefore rendering some of the adventure of this world just something you may stop pursuing. Let's talk about story in AC Odyssey. Kassandra is a descendant of the great Leonidas of Sparta. As a child, she and her brother are dropped from a mountain by her father who is following Spartan custom. She survives and sails to a little island called Kefalonia where she meets Marcos, who takes her in. Kassandra grows up to be a mercenary, or mystios as the Greeks would call her. This is where our adventure starts, as she is confronted by a strange man who sets her up on an adventure to eliminate a dangerous group of people controlling the Greek world called the Cult of Cosmos. This starts a chain reaction of events that lead Kassandra to finally leave Kefalonia and explore the rest of Greece. There are three main stories running side by side in Odyssey. These are the family story, the cultist story, and the first civilization story, also known as the Isu/modern day storyline. These three stories run simultaneously and intertwine multiple times throughout your playthrough. I enjoy the fact that these three stories are all intermingled and reveal themselves slowly as you progress through the other parts of the story. These stories also flow through the Peloponnesian War as you help both sides in multiple battles and political struggles. The family storyline has you meeting back up with old members of your family, where you must decide whether to forgive the members of your family who have hurt you or just yeet your father off a cliff as he did to you. The objective is to put your family back together, but your choices obviously have major consequences. I personally would like to never have to make a choice ever again in a game because they panic me and I always feel I've made the wrong one. but if a game is going to have choice, meaningful ones that change the outcome of other events in the game is something it must have. Odyssey does this many times with so many choices that have outcomes relating to them. Some you don't even see the effect of until much later into the game. Finding a family is well earned, as this is a very long game. You don't just turn up in a city and find who you are looking for. You must find clues, talk to people, help other characters in order to get information needed to find where they might be. And once this is done, you might need to convince them to join your family, or just to not kill you. It all feels earned, apart from a few instances where people seem far too easily convinced of something they were dead against only seconds before. Secondly, the cultist storyline has you hunting down members of the Cult of Cosmos, shady characters controlling and manipulating the Greek world. You must find clues to these cultists by doing quests or killing other cultist members. Some clues can be found in caves or chests scattered throughout the world. Now this system is pretty good, except if you want to finish this. You will have to use your good old friend Google. I had to do this multiple times, as some of the things you must do to find the clues are very hard to come across all on your own. Cultists don't have confessions, as Kassandra isn't an assassin or a hidden one. This is one thing I don't like at all. Confessions are a core part of the AC games and something I love from other entries. Getting to figure out motivations from our enemies and hints at secrets or things we don't yet understand is a great part of the past AC games, and even made a return in Valhalla. Confessions often make us question our own morals or goals, but having them removed from this game made it all the more easy to carry on murdering everyone in our way. The third and final storyline of the main story is the Isu storyline, that you find out a little bit further into the game. These are things that help our modern day protagonist Layla in her search for Isu artifacts and the search for Atlantis. This is by far the weakest storyline in the game in my opinion. I am someone who really loves and enjoys the modern day part of these games. It gives our adventures in the Animus purpose and a deeper meaning. In Odyssey, it isn't very often you hop out of the Animus to do anything spectacular, usually some dialogue about Layla staying in the Animus too long, or reiterating what we have just done in the Animus before we jump back into ancient Greece. It does have a payoff in the end that I actually enjoyed, but many found stupid and hilarious. In the end, I enjoyed most of the stories within the ancient world, but I do have major complaints still. This game is called Assassin's Creed, but there are no assassins in this game other than the modern day crew. This game takes place before the Hidden Ones, the predecessors of the Assassins, were even created. So I ask you, what relevance does this have to the Assassins then, if there are none in the ancient story? Well, they loosely link it through Kassandra needing to show Layla the way to Atlantis and to hold the staff of Hermes Trismegistus, yeah, nailed it, until Layla can arrive in the modern day to take it from her and become the heir of memories. It is later linked further in the DLC where Kassandra has a child who moves to Egypt and is the ancestor of the great Aya, who starts the Hidden Ones with Bayek. This still isn't enough for me. I hate that I don't play as an assassin in this game. I hate that there are no references to the Creed or to a Brotherhood or anything like that. I love to live the assassin fantasy. This is something many people have echoed about this game, that it's a great game, but it's just not an AC game. And while not agreeing with this 100%, even though I've parroted this myself in the past, I do think this is fairly accurate to my feelings about this game. Like I said in the intro, I love and hate this game. I just wish it was a Greek mercenary game without the AC label. Not to mention the main reason for hating this game is that it meant we got no Bayek Aya sequel, which is an outright travesty. Story aside, how is the actual gameplay of this controversial game? While combat is floaty, unrealistic, there are no shields, but there is god powers that make absolutely no sense, but for all that, it's still pretty damn fun. By the end of the game, I must admit the damage sponge enemies do start to take a toll on your patience and it becomes less and less fun. But before then, you can enjoy charging around the battlefield, Sparta kicking people, and downright embarrassing some enemies. In my second playthrough, I went for an assassin build, as I wanted to attempt to make this as assassin-y as I possibly could. This started by getting the right gear that had assassin damage multipliers on it. This could be armor or weapons, some gear even increased certain abilities damage. Next you need to look into the skill tree, which I must say I far prefer to Valhalla's messy and almost unusable skill tree. Odyssey's skill tree has three main categories that you make your way up slowly as you progress through the game. These are Hunter for bow combat, Warrior for melee combat, and Assassin for assassin based abilities, like being harder to detect or more assassin damage. I spec'd mostly into the Assassin tree. Abilities in the entire skill tree are powerful and meaningful. There are payoffs and consequences for your choices. If you spec, as I did, into the Assassin part of the tree, you are much weaker in all-out fights. I tended to try and complete most things stealthily, however once I was spotted I'd have a much harder time fighting up close and personal with the guards. This is an integral part of a skill tree, where you need to be weaker in another area if you spec into somewhere else, otherwise what is the point? And now to the part I hate about this. Why do I need to make a build in AC just so I can assassinate people in one hit if I manage to sneak up on them? This has been a staple of AC games forever, one-hit assassinations. This is one of my largest scraps with this game. I had to work very hard to keep my gear leveled up and my skills only focused on the assassin tree to keep up with the leveling enemies of the game who had greater and greater amounts of resistance to assassinations. Some targets were just not possible to assassinate, and so my build was rendered useless in these situations. I understand this is an RPG, which entails making builds and playstyles different from one another. However, you chose to slap an AC label on it, Ubisoft, so please, make it so I one-shot assassinate anyone I'm skillful enough to get right up to without them knowing. Don't make me fight a stupid boss fight when I'm fully spec'd into being a sneaky boy. Make it really hard to get close to them so that earning the kill feels like an accomplishment. They did do a few small things to make this build easier to use by having an ability you can use in combat that deals damage based on assassination damage, but it is a small consolation to the much larger issue. So this game is not really set up for stealth, although I did manage to play a large part of the game as such. But I still wish I could have snuck up on my main targets and finished them off before anyone heard a thing. Instead, you get drawn into a fight because it's impossible to one-shot them. Imagine in Unity if you had infiltrated Notre Dame unnoticed to kill Severe and stabbed him through the confessions booth, and he doesn't die. You just get drawn into a fight with him. How utterly lame would that be? Nope, just stop. That is just absolutely stupid. That's kinda how this is, except there's never any cool locations to kill your targets from, or special events to trigger. Most gameplay boils down to clear the area, then fight the main boss. It can get repetitive. Finally, some of the skills you can get in this game are very unrealistic. I always found AC to be grounded by its own rules and regulations, that it is a sci-fi series, that everything can be explained scientifically, and magic is not an explanation for anything. However, in Odyssey, that gets punched into another Animus simulation. Kassandra becomes some kind of demigod doing moves that can only be explained by magic. I do not at all like this in my AC games. It has no place here. When a series starts breaking its own rules, then it is no longer itself. It's something else, and in that case, I don't like this direction at all. We spoke a little bit about gear. There is a lot of it. In this game, you are constantly looting. Again, it can get pretty repetitive. I think less is more in these kinds of systems. I appreciate all the legendary gear, but pretty much everything else can get Sparta kicked out the window. Honestly, every so often you have to go through your inventory and either sell or break down all your gear you don't use into resources. It's tiresome. No one wants or should have to spend as much time in this menu as you do. You even have to access your inventory to craft arrows, which is really a mood killer during fights, especially boss fights where you need to do this several times. I'm not sure of a solution for this next problem, but the fact that there are weapon tiers means that after about 10 hours or so, anything that isn't legendary or at least epic is useless and will just never be used. Just another 10 minutes of clearing my inventory. I only used 2 full sets of armor throughout my playthrough, an early game legendary assassin set and a late game version of it, that were both acquired by killing off an entire branch of the Cult of Cosmos. This is a great way of attaining gear as it gives you something to aim for and more of a reason to hunt down the cultists. Once you have a full set, the set bonus is also very helpful for the build you are trying to create. Now onto the weapons. There are quite a few different categories of weapon in Odyssey. There are swords, daggers, heavy blunts, spears, staffs, or heavy blades, and they all have different stats, playstyles, upsides and downsides. For instance, daggers are fast and you can be quite agile, but they do a lot less damage on each strike than any of the other weapon types. I like the fact that all these weapon types play different and can help switch up gameplay throughout a playthrough. However, each weapon within a category feels much like any other within its own group, outside of a few special weapons. Bows are also a large part of your fighting arsenal. Bows are fairly basic, however, as they did away with the different types of bows from Origins, so it was actually a pretty cool feature. There is a perfect bow for your playstyle, but that is mostly because of the stats multipliers or the effects it grants you. And once again, I need to say that there are elements here I dislike immensely. It makes no sense in ancient Greece to be lighting your sword on fire or giving it poison effects. I want this kind of RPG stuff out of Assassin's Creed. I know that's the genre of the games now, but you don't need to copy everything from other RPGs. You can keep it grounded within the universe's lore. And this kind of stuff is awesome in fantasy RPG games, but here in AC, which is meant to be a focus on historical stories, no, just no. Ancient Greeks did not light their swords on fire, as cool as it sounds. This game also contains naval combat, which I hated in my first playthrough, but I got a little bit more invested this time in having a crew that sailed around Greece. It's not the best in the series, but it's passable. Upgrading your ship is a must-do, as some story missions revolve around this naval combat, taking your ship, the Adrestia, to its absolute limits. You must fire arrows and spears at other ships, and also ram or board them in order to kill targets on board or loot their treasure. Okay, so it's time to talk about the elephant in the room: time savers and XP boosters. Microtransactions are almost unanimously hated by the gaming world, however they continue to be unbelievably profitable to these companies who are basically selling out their reputation for money at this stage. And they don't seem to care, because they are making millions from this stuff. However, this garbage really starts to make me mad when it starts to affect how these games are created. Games that sell XP boosts are created with intentional grind to make you more likely to want to purchase these boosts to save time so you can continue on the main story without having to go do hours of side content for every hour of story you do. This is the case with Odyssey. Sure, sell stupidly priced cosmetic items. Sure, ruin the integrity of the game by selling gear that is so much better than anything I can find in the game. None of that is good, and I hate it all, but as soon as the base game actually starts to suffer for these microtransactions, then I think it's gone way too far. It is designed in a way that makes gameplay unfun, so that you will want to buy something to skip doing these things that are not fun. But it's a game. Everything should be fun, or at least designed to be fun. Nothing should be intentionally designed to make you hate doing it and want to buy something to skip it. Odyssey will make you do hours of side content for each section of the main story missions that you complete. The XP gain for the main story missions isn't even close to enough to get you to the next one. I think the game is probably 20 hours too long because of the bloat of side content you must complete. There is no reward for over-leveling either, as enemies just auto-level or level scale to your level. This is one thing I think is a problem in all RPG games that include level scaling. Every time you level up you gain damage, but the enemies gain just as much defense every time you level too. This leaves you feeling the same all the way through the game even though you have leveled up. If your sword did 10% of the target's health at level 1, it's still doing 10% at level 50. Again, I'm unsure how to fix this, but it is a problem I've been having with games like this for a long time. One more system we need to talk about is the mercenary system. When you do things that are against the law or you upset some individuals, they will put a bounty out on you. Then other mercenaries will hunt you down and try and kill you. And when I say hunt you down, I mean they will show up at the worst of times and make your day just awful. There is also a menu for this system that you progress through each time you defeat another mercenary. Each tier of this menu offers great benefits like reduced cost of items in shops or eventually a fire horse, because why not just break the law in two while you're at it. The mercenary fights are all different, and to be honest I quite like them. What I don't like is how quickly and accurately they're able to find you. They just all hone in on your location, and if you have been a real bad boy or girl, then you could have up to 5 of these guys chasing you at once. The best way to reduce your bounty is to either pay it off in the map, which is the lamest thing I've ever heard of in my life, or kill the sponsor of the bounty. I understand why they implemented the map payoff system, as the mercenaries can be very annoying during main content story missions, but still, it's just a very boring mechanic. Lastly, for this gameplay section, I wanted to touch on exploration mode. You can select this option at the beginning of the game, and it is an excellent addition to this RPG formula. Exploration mode takes away many of the markers during quests, and instead gives you vague directions and instructions on where you need to go. You can unlock the information by selecting extra conversation options. You can then look on the map and attempt to locate targets and objectives on your own from the information you have gathered. I do think it could have been developed even further to create an even more authentic exploration experience, but as it is, I prefer it to the usual markers guiding every step I take. Most of the time it boils down to it's north of this city and then you just run towards an unrevealed question mark on the map. So I think this is a great start to a system that needs further development to become truly game-changing in the future. Kassandra, in my opinion, is a pretty great character. Sure, you can make choices that make her seem horrible, but as I played her as much like an assassin as I could, sparing people as much as possible and trying to do the best I could in each situation, she seemed like a pretty great protagonist. Her voice acting is very good. The only thing letting it down is the writing of this game can be very sloppy. It has a free and easy feel to it, a strange humor and a lack of seriousness. Basically, it's very cheesy.
Give it to me!
You want it? Forget it.
I prefer a more gritty, dark story where everything I do feels like it matters and is important. I think this kind of attitude can work in a game, but it just didn't work very well here. Most other characters are voiced pretty well and conversations flow fairly well, except for the old part where everything gets put on hold waiting for you, the player, to make a conversational choice. The only person I really have a problem with is Demos or Alexios. I don't know what it is about the voice acting, it's just so stiff and it just sounds completely out of place, like a man reading off a script in a booth. This is why I didn't even consider playing as Alexios for my second playthrough. You meet many famous Greeks throughout your Odyssey, which has always been a strong part of any AC game. Highlights include Herodotus, the father of history, Socrates, a very famous philosopher, Hippocrates, the great physician and where we get the Hippocratic Oath from, Pericles, someone who helped expand on the idea of democracy, and our old friend from high school math class, Pythagoras. I enjoy greatly getting to talk and interact with these kinds of historical people from history, so this is a huge tick in the love category for this game. Just a quick mention for the romance options in this game. Why even put them in if you're going to make literally no effort making them worthwhile or have any point to them whatsoever? There are many characters you can click on the heart option for in conversations, and then you can maybe take them to bed for a nice cut to black that doesn't mean or do anything for the story or character development. There are no meaningful relationships that are more than a quick one and done and it's over, until the DLC that is, which we will discuss soon. The music in AC Odyssey, I must say, is fairly inconsequential. I can't say I noticed it much. Unlike in games such as God of War, where the music guides you through the emotions of the game, in Odyssey it just doesn't seem to have a major impact on how you feel or the story at large. This might be down to the writing of the story, but that's my honest opinion. A lot of the music is just happier than a lot of the other soundtracks in the series. Now on to the DLC. Odyssey has two DLCs, Legacy of the First Blade and The Fate of Atlantis. Let's first talk about Legacy of the First Blade. The marketing for this game was about creating your own Odyssey and playing as the character you want to be. This approach only really works in games where you have a character creator screen and you get to play as you want and act as your character would in any situation. It never really works when you have a pre-established character that you are later going to force into certain roles and situations. This is what happened in Odyssey. Some people played their character through the game creating their own legacy, being the character they chose to be. Some people had chosen to be lesbian or gay in their portrayal of Kassandra or Alexios. Then once the DLC rolls around, you have a heterosexual relationship forced on you. I understand why they had to do this, as there needs to be a child for the story to link into Origins, but this is the fault of the game being about player choice so much. You created a game in a way that means you shouldn't make them have a child and then force them into it. The controversy aside, Legacy of the First Blade was just a bit lackluster. It mostly involved hunting down the startings of the Order of the Ancients that had come over to Greece, hunting down clues just like the Cult of Cosmos. It was just an extension of the normal game with a few story beats thrown in to keep you playing. It just felt like playing more of the same old thing I'd already played for 40 hours. Fate of Atlantis DLC was up next. This one got pretty crazy as you entered simulations created by an Isu to train Kassandra and Layla to be ready to use the Staff of Hermes. You enter interpretations of Isu cities and lands based on Greek mythology. You first end up in the realm of Elysium, where you basically clear strongholds and do quests for people and Isu that you just don't really care about. I found it very hard to care about the Isu here especially. The map looks beautiful, but it is very large and very empty, and is just a pain to navigate even with the teleporters that they put in place. Rivers to cross everywhere and high peaks to climb or get down from. I just felt frustrated every time I had to go somewhere other than where I was. I was very happy to leave this place, even by being thrown down a large hole into the underworld to meet Hades. I enjoyed this section much more, meeting back up with Cleon, who had some kind of redemption arc, and meeting up with many of our cult targets from the main game. Obviously this map wasn't as beautiful as the previous, but I actually preferred this one. It was fun to navigate and just felt more real. I cared for the characters here, or at least believed in their existence more than I did in Elysium. Finally, after hunting down many targets and getting a new armor set, we took down Hades so that we could leave the underworld. Poseidon then comes to take us to the third and final realm, Atlantis. In Atlantis, you are tasked with accumulating knowledge to sync with your staff, to learn more and become a leader. While doing this, Poseidon tasks you to solve many problems in Atlantis. You go out to various places to attempt to fix certain problems. Pretty much all of them fail. I'm not sure if this was my bad choices or not, but I'm pretty sure the point was for you to fail. To teach Kassandra that leading is a difficult challenge and is not easy. No matter what you do, some things will not work out. Here you can get some very cool weapons and tailor them to your playstyle at the Forge, where you can select which weapon to make and for what playstyle. I like this part as I felt like I had the final best weapon for my build. Also, at some stage you are pulled out of the Animus to kill some Abstergo goons, and then later pulled out again where the staff and the bleeding effect make Layla lose her mind a little bit. And she murders Victoria. And then she kinda just forgets about it and moves on. This is something that really bothered me. Like, I don't mind them killing her off or in the way that it happened, but my god, Layla just didn't care hardly at all. They also weave in Juno and Aita doing their human experiments into this story, which is okay, I guess. In the end, Poseidon destroys Atlantis, so it's all fairly pointless. We return to modern day and Layla has to fight Otzoberg. Layla goes on a power trip and stabs him in the spine even though he's unable to carry on fighting. You then return to Kassandra in Kefalonia and then that's it. No credits roll or anything. You just feel as though Kassandra gets no closure on anything. I wish there was a final mission, going to see everything you had accomplished or chatting to everyone from the story. I don't know, just something. I wasn't even sure it had ended. I had to go Google it and click on YouTube videos and things, and it seemed like a lot of other people had the same problem. I generally don't like these mythical, over-the-top, unrealistic DLCs or worlds in my AC games. It's why I didn't touch Valhalla's Dawn of Ragnarok. I'm just not interested. I want to be an assassin in a realistic interpretation of our real world that follows the rules of the AC lore. The only reason I did the Fate of Atlantis DLC is because it has actual consequences on the modern day story. There are many reasons why I hate this game. The writing is cheesy, there's no Assassins or Creed lore, no confessions, the parkour is non-existent, stealth is not a super viable build, there's no one-shot assassinations unless you build exclusively for it, and even then it won't one-tap everyone. The map is beautiful, but I would prefer large contained cities with plenty of opportunities to sneak and be an assassin. The microtransactions hurt gameplay because the game is designed to sell them. It has unrealistic, floaty, and downright insane combat with powers of a demigod. The DLC was pretty boring except for a few sequences here and there. I hate what this game did to a series I love. That it took away everything that made it great, made future entries filled with even more microtransactions and more fluff and unnecessary grind. And yet, for all these faults, I still love playing this game. I feel bad for even saying that as an old school AC fan who adores the Ezio trilogy. But honestly, I get sucked in when I play this. I enjoy running around as a demigod using my god powers, kicking people off mountains. I genuinely like Kassandra as a character. She's sarcastic, funny, likable, and a straight up badass. I like the looks of a lot of the gear in this game and using the transmog system to look cool even with the other armor's stats. I love the Greek world they created and just being a part of it. I keep going back in my head to the comment that this is a great game, but a terrible AC game. But I don't think that's true at all. I think it's a terrible game that is just unbelievably fun. Well, that's it guys, a confusing mess of thoughts that I decided to type up on my computer screen. I still don't really know how I feel even now, but I want to thank you all for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more gaming content. Don't forget to check out the playthrough of this game and many others on my second channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Sticks out.